You clicked on this video, I wrote the title of this video, so we both know what I'm gonna talk about here, about 10 chess principles that will you help win more games as a beginner player. So without any further ado, let's get straight to chess principle number 1. So principle number 1 is control the center of the board. You can do this either with your pawns or also with your pieces. In this situation here, we have the knight controlling 2 central squares already, and your pawn is helping you out to control a further square. Of course, your opponent is going to try to do the same and going to try to hinder you from controlling all of the center, and it is also not necessary to control all of the center. You should at least control some of it though, because that will help you mobilize your pieces easier and also will help you in creating attacks more easily. Number 2, develop your knights before your bishops. Why is that? Because your knights usually belong on the same squares, the c3 and the c6 and the f3 and the f6 square. That is why you usually want to develop them first, because your bishop are much more flexible as to where they will go later on in the game. So by not committing them too early, you make sure that you will not have to move your bishop twice in the opening. Principle number 3, avoid doubled pawns and avoid isolated pawns. So in this position here, of course, black has the option to capture on a4, but if you do that, you instantly are almost completely losing, because you double and also isolate your 4 pawns here. They will become targets and they will be very easy for black to pick up. Of course, you want to keep your pawns together, supporting each other, which will make it much harder for your opponent to pick off your pawns from the board. Opposite colored bishop favor the attacking side. So in this position here, of course, white has the dark squared bishop, whereas black has the light squared bishop. And this is very useful for the attacking side, because you can control squares with your bishop, which your opponent simply will not be able to defend with his own bishop, because of course bishop only ever move on one specific type of square. So black's bishop is pretty much useless in defending when you are going to create a dark squared attack, which you will do with this very strong bishop on b2 in this case. Number 5, don't give away open files for nothing. So in a situation like this, where 2 rooks are facing each other here on the c file, don't simply capture the rook, because of course after your opponent recaptures, he will be controlling the c file and you not can bring your rook over any longer, because of course it will just be taken. So you will have basically to struggle to bring your king into this position and to trade off the rooks, for example. But of course, until you can achieve that, your opponent will already have infiltrated with their own rook and you will simply be in a completely lost position. Principle number 6, don't give away a knight and a bishop for a rook if there's no specific reason, because 2 minors are better than a rook. So in this situation here, if black were to capture on the f2 square, of course white could recapture with the rook and trading off a rook for a knight and a bishop, and the rising position is completely winning for white, because usually if there's no specific situation, a knight and a bishop are way better than a rook, because they are 2 pieces and together can control more squares and also can team up with each other. Number 7, the pawn structure decides on which side of the board you should play. So here in this situation, we have, of course, white's pawns facing towards the king side, which means white should play on this side of the board and try to create an attack right around here, whereas black's pawns are facing towards the queen side, which means black has more space there and should try to play on the queen side. So always make use of the side of the board where you are stronger, because you don't want to fight where you are weaker. Principle number 8, calculate forcing moves first. And that is because, of course, forcing moves like giving a check will lead to fear possible responses by your opponent. So by doing that, you can save yourself a lot of calculation and you can, of course, still not play the move after the calculation shows that it's not a good move. But if you calculate it first, you can save yourself a lot of time. And of course, time is incredibly valuable in chess, as you don't want to waste time on thinking about useless variations. Principle number 9. A knight on the rim is dim. So you usually don't want to place your knights towards the edge of the board, because from there they are controlling fewer squares and have fewer squares they can possibly access. And a knight which is placed more towards the center of the board has many more squares it can potentially jump to. So it has a higher quantity of squares, but also the quality of squares is different, because if it controls central squares, it is worth more, because usually the more central squares of the board are the most important ones. And now the last principle, principle number 10, which is more a bit of a mindset related tip, is don't play hope chess. So don't play moves that only make sense if your opponent basically blunders back. So let's say you can decide to play queen to f3 here, threatening, of course, checkmate here, but this move is only good if your opponent misses this threat. So if you're a beginner, this might even work out some of the time, but it will still hinder you from improving at your game, because you cannot always rely on your opponent making blunders. So play moves that are actually good moves, and not only good if your opponent blunders. So there you have it, 10 chess principles that will help you improve your games and win more games as a beginner. So I hope you enjoyed them. Please tell me in the comments which one is your favorite one, or is it another one which I have not mentioned in the video. Of course, there are loads and loads of chess principles. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel if you want to see more content like this. And as always, thanks for watching.